Did you know that we have senses beyond the usual 5 that people talk about, and that some of these extra senses are actually major obstacles to our ability to immerse ourselves in VR? To such a point that people like Gabe Newell are outright calling it out as being way harder to do compared to things like even controlling games with our minds. Believe it or not, it is very much a thing, and if we want to achieve Sword Art Online levels of virtual reality immersion, it's a reality that we're going to have to confront one way or another. Welcome to my video, Virtual Dreamers. My name is Gregory, and we're going to be tackling the subject of the sense of kinesthesia. To start, let's review about what the sense of kinesthesia actually is so that we're all on the same page. Kinesthesia is the sense of bodily motion. It works in tandem with another little known sense, the sense of proprioception or of bodily position, in order to kind of give us our sense of place in the world. Without these senses, you wouldn't be able to tell where your head is when you have your eyes closed, nor which direction your hand is moving in that same vein. Being that these are both senses of the human body that play a big role in our sense of place, it should come as no surprise that they're very important to the process of becoming immersed in VR. Kinesthesia in particular plays a huge role for why we feel as immersed in virtual reality as we do today. Early efforts in the VR medium weren't quite as successful at achieving the sense of presence, despite their abilities to visually and audibly immerse us as a result of their lack of stimulation for kinesthesia. It's not until we added motion tracking and eventually spatial tracking into the mix of our VR regimen that the standard VR experience really managed to successfully immerse the sense of kinesthesia. To my regular viewers, yes, you did actually just hear me say that we are actually currently immersing the sense of kinesthesia. Proprioception too. Just about any standard VR headset you can find nowadays is able to immerse your sense of kinesthesia. No need for fancy peripherals, a crazy suit, or any other kind of software tweak to get it involved. Pretty much just comes with the package now. You'd be forgiven for thinking that the sense of kinesthesia is no longer a problem for the virtual reality medium based on that description I just gave. But of course, if it wasn't a problem, I probably wouldn't be talking about it in this video. The truth of the matter is, the immersion that we currently get for the sense of kinesthesia isn't actually a result of the things we're doing to stimulate the body, so much as it is a byproduct of our current method of playing in VR. Movement. Motion controls by their very nature intrinsically immerse our sense of kinesthesia. If you paid attention in my last video though, on the subject of artificial locomotion, you'll remember that I specifically mentioned that kinesthesia is not immersed. And unfortunately, this extends to quite a few of our other control methods as well at this time. You see, unlike our senses of vision, hearing, smell, and even taste, you can't really pinpoint one particular part of your body where you would say that is where kinesthesia is. Unfortunately, it's really more spread out all the way throughout it, kind of like our sense of touch is. It could possibly be even more difficult than touch because unlike touch, its basis is very likely inside of our bodies and a mixture of multiple senses rather than being its own isolated system. Because ultimately, it's a mixture of your sense of vision, your sense of bodily pressure, your sense of touch, heck, even your sense of balance is involved in the process of determining what kinesthesia is going to make feel real. And until we can really get an isolated point in, it's really going to be difficult to get a hold of this sense. All of this really just means that it's very difficult to design a technological solution towards immersing the sense of kinesthesia. It really could be said that we just got lucky with regards to motion controls and kinesthesia at this point in time for our VR paradigm. Any little change we try to make to the motion control status quo ultimately ends up losing us points in the kinesthesia immersion grade. Literally, just about everything. Artificial locomotion, failing grade, doesn't even try. Pushing along in 0G. Brain, can I has momentum please? Omnidirectional treadmill? Better, but your inner ear's asking why you're just kind of bobbing up and down rather than moving forward there, buddy. The crazy part here is even the CHAD of VR movement solutions, brain-computer interfaces, might not get away unscathed here. Because you see, when it comes to brain-computer interfaces, everyone just thinks that, oh, once we kind of figure out one part, everything else is going to be just as easy. That isn't necessarily the case. The motor cortex and our ability to detect motion is actually a lot easier to deal with, because if you look at the motor cortex, it's conveniently right along the top of your head, and in particular a lot closer to the surface compared to other functions. So it's relatively convenient. I'm not telling you easy, but it's relatively convenient to access. By comparison though, the sense of kinesthesia is, as I said, a sense of the body. There's a lot more things that need to interact with that sense than just the muscle commands that are being sent right down to the body. Your hormones, your immune system, even your memories can all really heavily tie into that immersion that we get from the sense of kinesthesia and our other senses, which makes it a much more complicated thing to really just pinpoint down in our brain. But you know what? You don't even have to take my word for it. I'll go ahead and let Gabe Newell spell things out a little bit clearer for himself.
Be passionate about
Reading
it.
and writing to somebody's motor cortex is much more of a tractable problem than making people feel cold. But it turns out that your brain has really good interfaces for some things and really badly designed kludgy interfaces for doing other things. And the fact that
That's not exactly the most encouraging thing to hear when we're already struggling enough as it is when it comes to the movement side of things, which you know is already somewhat convenient. So yeah, when we've reached the point where even brain-computer interface technology is having trouble with an issue, you can pretty much say that it's about time to take it seriously. Now, I don't want to go ahead and start letting you guys think, oh, this is impossible, there's nothing we can do. We have options. I mean, by all means, people, we've literally reached a point where we're talking brain-computer interface technology being an option on the table. If we reach a point in the future whereby manipulating our brains for sensory stimuli for the other senses is something that's actually viable, I'm not really in a position where I'm going to go ahead and throw out kinesthesia when we're already at that point. Especially if we reach levels where we're manipulating memories like guys like Elon Musk are expecting. And you know what? Leaving aside all the sci-fi level solutions here, it's easy to forget that a lot of the way that we've gotten as far as we have on the realms of immersion really are taking advantage of another interesting property of our brains. They're relatively gullible. Our sense of reality is a very fragile little thing that can very easily be tipped around and played with depending on the sensory stimuli we provide it. Video is nothing but still pictures being moved one after the other that kind of indicate motion. They aren't actually moving, but our brains treat them like they are. All it took for us to go from video being an interesting thing that looks like it's moving to being reality was blocking out the rest of reality and making the pictures sort of make sense with our motion. That really is all it took. So think about it. If we can make exploits like this happen with our current tech, who's to say that there aren't other exploits we might not be considering at this time that could have just as big an impact? I mean, I'm personally looking into a sensory substitution-based solution, and who's to say that that tech that's been used to make people walk around in circles doesn't show some kind of indication that maybe the accuracy of our sense of kinesthesia can be played around with for some larger sophisticated movement rigs. Who knows, maybe an Assassin's Creed style giant room level rig will be viable if you use that circular system and get around the kinesthesia problem in that case. Goodbye, Mr. wondering about whether or not you're just bobbing up and down inner ear, and hello, Mr. I'm feeling a forward motion vector, that's good enough for me, kinesthesia. And of course, it can't be forgotten that, lucky byproduct of motion control or not, we are currently immersing kinesthesia. Any future iterations on VR, AR, whatever you want to call it, technology that we make that still follows the motion control paradigm doesn't have to worry about this. So if you're worried about whether or not your ordinal scale / turning my house into a horror house experiences are going to be damaged by kinesthesia, you can put that to rest right now. While we still have a lot of work that needs to be done for us to really truly take care of the sense of kinesthesia in order to push forward our newer paradigms for VR controls, I at the very least have confidence that we have the ability to identify the problem at this stage. Knowledge really can be half the battle, and the fact that we have this kind of a framework already kind of figured out is a very important step towards having the next generations of engineers and developers and scientists really look at this kind of subject matter and genuinely try to tackle the problems at hand. I'm confident that if we manage to get as far as we have, that we'll find something eventually to be able to conquer something like this in the near future. Like I mentioned, I'm personally still working on a sensory substitution solution, and I'm hoping that whatever result I can get can at the very least provide the community some kind of insight into the matter, whether I end up succeeding or failing to overcome the problem in my own design. Ultimately, my hope here is that the VR community as a whole can identify these kinds of problems and seek out solutions either together or in unison in order to truly push things forward and bring about the kind of VR dream experiences that we all hope for in the future. Alas though, the future is the future and today is today, and I at the very least have to thank all of you for watching this video to the end. Thank you so much, my dear adventurers and dreamers, for watching this video. If you want to support the community, go join the Discord server. I'll have a link down below in the description. Till next time though, my fellow adventurers and dreamers, this has been Gregory, logging out.